Hi everybody, this is Cyrus Hojadi. I've been making a lot of videos about what's been going on across the Las Vegas area, but given the fact that I still have a lot of roots from Southern California and I have many Facebook friends from that area, I want to give some of my comments about this so-called plan or measure, which is called Measure G, which allows higher density development in the city of Redlands, California. And first of all, let me tell you about why this is important, why this relates to me a lot. Well, first of all, I was raised in the Inland Empire for 13 years, from 1996 to 2009. By the way, if you guys haven't checked, please subscribe to my channel, youtube.com/Cyrus992. Click that bell to get some updates in the coming days and weeks ahead. So let me start off about showing you about what this plan is. So it says Save Redlands. So this is basically opposition against Measure G, against high density development. And basically what I believe is, I have a mixed opinion about this Measure G. There are things I like and there are things that I do not like, believe it or not. So let's take a look at the map of the city of Redlands. As you can see here, let me just click on it. And this is the city. This is Interstate 10. This is, I believe, Freeway 210. These are the boundaries right here. And as you can see, it is, in case if you guys were wondering, it is about 60 miles east of the city of Los Angeles. It is located in San Bernardino County. And let's just try to zoom out right here. This is Rancho Cucamonga, as you can see here, the city that I was raised. And just to let you know, I really was not a fan of its car-dependent urban planning, where basically the land uses were separated. Retail was so separated from office. Apartments were heavily separated from regular homes by these 6-lane collector roads. Believe it or not, the last year I was there, I was 15 years old. I told them at a community event that I was not a fan of that system. And even though they did have some projects recently to remedy it, I'm still not a fan about that either. So this really comes down to, what are my basic views about urban planning? Because I've been talking about this issue for literally a decade and a half and so. And the fact of the matter is, I am not a fan of sprawl. Sprawl, which is car dependent, heavily separates land uses, which is basically, you can find them in suburbia. And I'm also not a fan of smart growth, which I really think it's a controlled opposition tool. And I believe smart growth is a huge part of Measure G, believe it or not. Now, the problem is with a lot of people who tend to be opposed to Measure G and smart growth, and they seem to like suburbs. They think, oh, suburbs is a product of the free market. And that's just full of BS. Suburbia, largely, the car-dependent system, which is heavily separating the land uses, first of all, comes largely from the first zoning laws that started back in the 1920s. Now, you guys have seen me in many of my protests. I've talked about, let's bring back the architecture and the land use policies more like the 1920s, because that's when it started to turn over, around, I believe, the Great Depression or World War II. And suburbia, this system, which basically you can see, as you can see, these streets that are like mazes, traffic that gets shoved in the few roads. It's basically like you're getting in and out of a maze. You have these sprawling strip malls and office clusters. You really cannot get around by walking. It's heavily coded and subsidized. Codes for the street dimensions, the height restrictions, the parking minimums and subsidies, you name it, building setback, the list goes on and on. Now, if you look at a more lower density development, the system that I've been favoring and I've been talking about for a very long period of time, and that is this historic district, as you can see right here. Now, going back to this redevelopment plan. So one of the things I wanted to point out is I am not a fan of smart growth, which is probably pushing this plan. And I'm also not a fan of SCAG, the Southern California Association of Governments. Now, many of you know Grindle61. He had a YouTube channel. It was very critical of that regional agency. I don't believe in regional agencies to get too much involved, nor the federal government or state laws. But again, once again, the problem with Gary Galeno, Grindle61, or these people who are these agenda UN critics of like Rosa Corey. And by the way, I don't really know if that agenda is really pumping this plan. I think a lot of it is just people who just believe that, well, this is more efficient. We want to bring the historic benefits back, which it really isn't when you think about it. But anyway, whether you have these libertarian guys like Wendell Cox and Randall O'Toole, they don't really seem to understand or tell you the flaws of suburbia. So you basically have two systems, the so-called solution and what we've been having for the last 80 years, which basically makes up 70% of Redlands and basically so much of this country where it's heavily flawed. So we have two really complicated systems. And I think Sprawl, heavily, it's a sham. Just look at the land use planning. This is a disaster. What are we building ourselves? All these homes that look alike. You need a car to get around. You're isolated when gasoline prices go up really high. You're doomed. A lot of personal, private, and public expenditures for this system. It's a complete sham. But then, once again, that does not believe that I believe that Measure G is the solution. Now, Measure G does have some things that I do like. Now let's take a look at this post. It says, Save Redlands No on G. Here's what Measure G is really about. Eliminates all height and density standards. Now, I don't know if it eliminates all height. I think it eliminates at least a good amount. I have to read the bill. I have to hear the other side. So, again, these bullet points, I'm not saying they're lies, but they can be kind of misleading. And again, this guy, Gregory, I don't think he's a con artist. I don't think he's a liar. But again, there's just things that I just don't think he really understands. Now, I agree with him on a number of issues, like how California is so corrupt and the immigration and a lot of different things. And by the way, if you obviously cannot build your cities, you're not supposed to have lots of immigration. It's very simple. You can't run your country like a DMV. But anyway, going back to this, it says reduces city council land use approval votes from 4 to 5 to 3 to 5. Builds unlimited stack and packs in apartments. Now, again, it doesn't say really when they mean unlimited. It just means that it goes from a longer streak of town where they're going to build all these other areas. And you can see here, adds at least 8,000 more people into apartments. More traffic, less parking, more crime. Now, of course, that is not necessarily guaranteed. It all depends. More crime. I don't know where they're getting this. Design of a certain area doesn't have a lot to do with crime. It has to do with how children are raised, its education, the poverty rate. There's a lot of different things. Raises water and sewer services for all residents. Now, how does that the case? Because if you're having a sewer line and you're having more people in them, there's going to be more people per capita using every sewer line. So you're getting more bang for your buck. And the same with roads too. Increases the burden of schools. Okay, makes sense. But then again, if they build more schools, that's also important. And of course, the birth rate has been falling a lot. Restricts the view of our mountains. Okay, makes sense. Places an unfair tax burden on our homeowners, but it doesn't give you specific how that is. But then again, you're having more people per square mile, so you have more taxpayers using basically more efficiency of your public resources, so like parks and a lot of different things. And it favors developers over Redlands residents and taxpayers. Now, okay, I agree, if you're having dirty campaign money pumping into this system, it's bad. So you can basically see that what the agenda is all about. Now, what this does not tell you, and what he has not pointed out, and I just commented to him, I told him that developers and special interests have always been manipulating our land use policies for decades. You can go back in time. You can go back in the 40s and 50s and 60s where you had basically big box retailers, asphalt pavers, auto manufacturers, oil companies, other types of developers, you name it. that lobbied to get rid of our streetcar systems, change our land use policies, and not to mention the banks too. Wall Street is a very large component about this. Think about it. Suburbia with these McMansion homes creates all this extra lending. And the banks like that. The more credit you have, the more powerful Wall Street and the Federal Reserve gets. I get that. However, what you also have to keep in mind, though, is that they were the ones that lobbied and gave our sprawl system that we have. So we've always had special interest groups when it comes to land use policy. And I believe that all PAC money should be banned in elections. I don't like that. I want clean elections. And that's one of the major things I actually agree with the left. But anyway, that's a totally different topic. We'll get that to another day. But when it comes to this issue, this is what it's really, really the problem. These are the same people that seem to complain that, oh, California is so expensive. Oh, California is just costs going through the roof. Oh, and you know why? It's mainly because it's just run by liberals. And yeah, okay, you can argue CEQA laws and land restrictions are making it more expensive. When you have a lot of immigrants, especially non-legal ones, that can drive up the cost of housing. I'm not saying they're the main cause, but you get the idea. It's supply and demand. But this is where you guys are really missing out. One of the main reasons why California is expensive, in addition to Prop 13, foreign buyers, speculators, in addition to the fact that you have a lot of different other factors, regulations, permitting, it's not just land restrictions, it is height restrictions. Now think of it this way. Gregory tells me, well, only 5% of California is urbanized. Okay, but even if you had the entire state of California that were to be urbanized, Malibu is still going to have expensive housing. Newport Beach is going to have expensive housing. San Francisco is going to still have expensive housing. And as libertarian, and even liberals agree with this as well, when you have places like San Francisco, which is mostly covered with 2-3-story buildings, as it is in Redondo Beach and Long Beach, etc., that is suppressing the supply, and that drives up prices. So the main reason why, I don't know the number one reason, that California is expensive, it's at least the top 5 reasons, is because of height restrictions. We need more taller buildings to increase the supply of housing. Duh. It's very simple. We need to build lots of high-density development all across the California coast to make housing more affordable. Now, getting back to Redlands. Redlands is a different ballgame. Redlands is not the same ballgame as Los Angeles, San Francisco, Anaheim, or even San Bernardino. But here's the problem, though. This is where it gets really insane. And I don't mean to sound like a jerk, but you guys talk about, well, we're Tea Party patriots. We believe in freedom and liberty. But here's the thing. When you're giving developers the freedom to go up and build higher density development, well, are you guys really about freedom? Or are you guys just favoring things that you just call it freedom and you just have a certain agenda in mind? See, and I think that's the problem. The problem is with a lot of these smart growth critics or whatever, they complain about higher density development and they complain about restrictions that favors high density development. But when it comes to restrictions that only favors spread out car dependent development, these people keep their mouths shut. When they're talking about the fact that they're reducing, I don't know about this measure, but many cities reducing parking minimums, they're saying, oh my gosh, there's no parking. They're trying to get out of our cars. But in reality, what they're doing is they're giving the freedom for developers to build as much as parking spaces as they want. I think that should be practically everywhere you go. If I'm a developer, I want to build the amount of parking spaces that best fits my customers or my clients. It's very simple. So this is the problem. Now, you can see here that, you know, it's not just the codes, it's liberating. Now, you can see that it's not necessarily adding new laws. So this is giving more freedom. But once again, I thought the Redlands Tea Party Patriots, or whatever this organization is, I thought they're more about freedom. This is just insanity. Now, you want to talk about a time when we had lots and lots and lots of freedom. That was back in the 1920s when we were building the most functional, beautiful, historic, charmful cities that we've ever done in our society. And I want to show you a little bit about what's going on. So let's see if we can get out of here right now. And this is where you've built the most beautiful cities. Now, you can argue that I like suburbs, I like cars, but why can't you build your cities more like this historic district out in Redlands, California? Why not? See, this is the thing. So let me show you some examples. Now he's saying, oh, okay, we don't like stack and pack housing and all that stuff. I get it. It can look monstrous. But why can't you be in favor of something like this? Look at this beautiful chateau-esque style building, as you can see here. And which city that actually built this? Let me guess. Ta-da! Redlands, California. So why can't you build 2-3-story buildings like this one that is not only residential, but can be condominiums, offices, and retail? See, that's a simple compromise. Now look at this. See, it all depends on the design of the buildings. Look at this. This is a 3-story, I guess it's stack and pack, that looks very similar to a single family home, but it has shops below and you can have offices, hotels, and condos above. This is what I'm talking about. This is how we should be building things nowadays. And not just in Redlands, but for here in Las Vegas. And of course, this is more of a Georgian style, colonial era style. Of course, you would want to make this more of a Mediterranean Spanish hacienda style. But let me give you another example. This is a more taller building. This is in Fullerton, California. And this was built about well over 100 years ago. This is Italian Renaissance Revival. Beautiful structure, amazing. And this was built at a time when Fullerton was a small town. Now, you guys want to argue, well, I don't want stack and pack, but I don't see how this stack and pack, which was built about 100 years ago, when we had the freedom to build it, is going to be so much harm. It's going to provide a lot of benefits. You guys gotta start thinking about new ideas and making good deals, folks. This is one of the things. Now, I also wanted to talk about this. So let's go to the downtown area. And you can see here. Now, when I spoke to Gregory, he told me, okay, we would like some higher density development. It would make sense in the downtown corridor. We just don't want it from Alabama Street all the way to the university campus. And I get that. It makes sense. However, here is the issue that I want to talk about. Just because you're building higher density development does not always mean that you are guaranteed to have more traffic. It all depends on the capacity. If you're building more roads, if you're expanding the roads, that's one thing. And here's another thing, transit. And you guys are thinking, well, no, I don't want light rail. I don't want the Metrolink. Nobody's gonna ride them. Yeah, here's the problem. Those transit systems suck. They're secondhand. That's the problem. So if you really want to talk about transit, let me show you the transit services that I am specifically in favor of. And in addition, there's been some that's been talked about, the Hyperloop and the maglevs, but this is a more localized system. And you can see here, my friend Thomas is a member, personal rapid transit. So let's say on a light rail system, you have somebody who's sitting next to you who smells and wants to attack you. You don't have to worry about this system. This is called personal rapid transit. You get in, automatically it takes you from one place or another. And I heard it can go to speeds up to 100 miles an hour. So If you can build a capacity for transit, then you can build higher density development. Now, if you can't, well, then it doesn't make sense. But either way, it makes sense to build higher density development because, well, you're having a housing crisis. Now, then again, you can't just build wall-to-wall skyscrapers. You've got to do it slowly. So I would suggest, okay, maybe you can build one unit right around here, maybe 4 or more stories. I mean, obviously you can't disagree that 2 to 3 stories is going to be at the end of the world. Give me a break. But 4 or more stories, you can build one here, and you can probably build one here. Let's see how it works. Give it a test. And then if there's problems, then we can stop it. If there's more benefits, if there's not a lot of problems, then you can continue. So I would suggest a more step-by-step process because, again, it isn't just you guys. It's just the fact is that you have a lot of people that want to move in and they need housing. Okay, this idea of having high real estate prices and restricting people creates a lot of problems. Now, I can go all day telling you that there's just so many problems with having high real estate prices. Okay? And by the way, there's just a lot of great things I do like about historic parts of Redlands, California. Let's just take a look at some of these neighborhoods. If you'll excuse me, my computer is a little bit slow. I don't know why is this happening. But wow, look at these beautiful homes. Now, like I said, Measure G, one of the other problems is it's not bringing back the benefits of old-fashioned architecture really back in our communities. And this is why I do not fully support it. But you can see these beautiful architecture. You can see how the garage doesn't eat up the front. You can see the charm. See how it attracts pedestrians. It's easier to meet your neighbors. You can easily walk around. It favors cars, pedestrians. Oh, and people who want to bike too, as well. See, this is the charm. This is how we should build our future subdivisions. But the problem is people don't get it. This is the problem. These beautiful Queen Anne style homes. You've got, I believe this is a shingle style home. Amazing. Whatever happened to this beautiful charm? And then you can go right here. We're going to just zoom out. And you can see here, you can easily walk to shopping and downtown. Whatever happened to building cities like this? But oh no, what you have to do, ladies and gentlemen, is you have to get out of the cul-de-sac, get out of a useless, mazed up subdivision with these useless gates, and then park your car into a mega surface parking lot with an ugly big box store. Give me a darn break. But then look, you can easily walk around, you can easily walk to shops, services, and other amenities. This is why Redlands has just so much character and beauty. But people don't really realize that out of the top of their heads. And this is a problem. We need to build more cities like that. Look at this beautiful State Street Center. And by the way, I wish it had more housing units and offices above. And I also want to show you something real quick because a lot of people are scared if the building is more than 2 stories. Well, let me show you something real quick because they think it's such an invasive idea. Let's zoom in right here. And I want to show you some surprise. Like I said, it all depends on the design of the building. These are important things you have to understand. So let's take a look at this right here. Just let it load, see if it can do that. As you can see right here, the city of Redlands has a 6-story office building, as you can see right here. So when people are just kind of freaking out and saying, oh, well, this is going to really create some height and view issues, you have a 6-story building. And given this look right here, this building, excuse me, but it doesn't load. It has been built, from the looks of it, the international style, in the 1970s, I believe. So this isn't something new for the city. Now, another thing I also wanted to keep in mind too is that you also have to look at other factors. First of all, why aren't they pushing high density, as far as I know, in the city of San Bernardino? Because first of all, you also have to keep in mind that San Bernardino has the capacity and is a more favorable climate to build higher density housing. But why aren't they doing that? Well, maybe it's just beat up, it's gritty, crime ridden. Now, I suggest you work on renewal projects over there. Another thing I also wanted to point out is that you also have to look into the future. First of all, there's a lot of signs that our economy is about to weaken. As you know, it's propped up by very low interest rates. I know I keep parroting this, but people have to get it in their head. And if this low interest rate economy loses steam, the rates go up, this economy is going to be in a lot of trouble. This is one of the things you have to keep in mind. Not to mention, also wanted to point out is that a larger factor is rideshare programs and self-driving cars. Because as those technologies come in, there's going to be a lesser need for car ownership, not to mention scooters as well. And keep in mind, though, the need of parking is going to come down drastically. Okay? So these are one of the factors you have to keep in mind. The problem with a lot of these plans is that they don't consider the future in the long run. All right, everyone, I will have to end it there. You guys let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys so much. If you like this video, please subscribe, please share this video. And if you'd like to leave a comment below, let me know what you think. Again, I respect all ideas, but I'm giving you my take. Take care, and please, let's create more beautiful, functioning cities around the world.